Right, so this is Jen DeTracy, and this is my MS story part 2 of the first story that I'm recording as a video. The reason why I'm doing it in 2 parts is because it's getting long, and I don't want to put you to sleep or anything like that. So, as I mentioned in my last one, I'll just a quick recap is that my body was, my left leg was dragging, my hand wasn't working, and my lip was drooping. Eventually I went to the hospital. I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, and I was given 3 days of steroid drip, and I felt crazy, and I went into denial when I got home with this excessive fatigue that I just thought would disappear after the steroid drip wore off, and that I could just carry on with my life, and that's what I did. But it was hard because that didn't work so well. So what I'd like to do now, though, is go back again before I was diagnosed to, I think it was around 5 years before. I can't remember the exact date or anything, but 5 years before I was diagnosed, because a lot of us have had symptoms that have arisen over the time of our life, right? So here I was. What was happening then in my life? It's interesting. I don't even know what was going on. I think I was, busy and active, and my daughter was living at home at that time. She would have been in her teens, early teens, maybe. And I just started to feel sick to the point where I couldn't even move. I laid down in bed, and I was just laying in bed overnight, and then when I tried to get up in the morning, I threw up. I didn't know that I had vertigo. It was crazy. It was a mess. And so it was my daughter who wanted an ambulance to be called, and so that happened, and they must have given me something in the ambulance. I think I don't even remember what was happening, because I think I was vomiting, but I don't even have much of a recollection of that, other than they didn't have barf bags in the ambulance. It was very inconvenient, right? So there I was, and I was admitted to a little hospital, and they didn't check me out for MS, which, honestly, at that time in my life, things were tough. My life was not moving in a way that I really was feeling good about. I wasn't feeling good about myself at that time. I was in an emotionally abusive relationship. Not that I was able to identify that at that time either. So life was complicated, and so I just am really grateful that I didn't have to deal with a diagnosis at that point in time, because in this case, what happened was when I went to the hospital, they put me on some kind of drip medication, and then I didn't notice that I still had vertigo, and I'm like, yeah, I'm good to go home, after the weekend. And then I get home, and I'm like, no, I don't. My computer screen's blurry because I work from home, and I just wasn't feeling good. And I had a friend flying in from out of town, and we were going to go up to my cottage, and I said, well, you're going to have to drive, and I'm going to be on gravel. This is before I discovered meclizine, which is not available in Canada, but is available in the States, and it is rock star stuff. And so that was, it probably took a month. Thank goodness it was over the summertime, and I could kind of fake my situation with work. And then, it went away, and I didn't think anything of it. And I probably, I think, the fatigue was always with me a little bit, probably, I don't know, for quite a long time. But I would just say, I'm thinking a lot at my computer. I just need to lay down for 10 minutes and get back up and work again. And I would do stuff like that. And I was running at the time. So I just didn't really equate it with anything. I was eating a healthy diet. I was getting exercise. I had a social life. All of these things that were good. And because of that, I just didn't equate it with anything to be concerned about. And I'm grateful, like I said, at that time. So fast forward, then I'm diagnosed, and then I get out of the hospital, and there I am, one big mess, right? The unknown is before me. I don't know what MS is. I don't even want to read about it, because I'm already afraid that I'm going to end up in a wheelchair. Terrified. I was terrified of that. And I had all of these contracts for the next I think I had like a month, the month of October, to just recover, and then November and December and in the new year, like I had contracts that I was fulfilling where I was traveling places, not mostly by car, and I didn't know how I was going to do it. Like I just tried to space them out so that I had a recovery day in between, and yeah, it was tough. So that's how my life began, and then with living with MS, and I realized over time that the fatigue was not going away. It wasn't going away. Saw my neurologist, the one I love, Dr. Seo, and she said something very powerful to me. She said, Jen, usually people that are diagnosed with multiple sclerosis have grief for up to 3 years. That's the cycle that I've seen. And just be aware of that. Be aware that might be with you, and that you may experience that. So I was like, that was very helpful for me, reassuring to know. It's not that I wanted to grieve, but I at least was given permission that was a normal thing to do. And so maybe you can write down in the comments underneath here what your experience has been with grief, and have you been able to move through it now over time, or is it still hanging on by just by its claws to you, right? That denial, that grief, that anger, it was hanging on to its claws by me, and I just continued to work and deny until basically April of the following year. So you're talking like November, December, January, February, March. Yeah, like 6-7 months of denial around it, and I just basically decided that what was I going to say here? I decided at that point that, I needed some help, that I need to go to a counselor and I need to get some support because I was not coping well. And I had to pay for that counselor, and I had the means to pay. I'd left the emotionally abusive relationship 2 years prior to being diagnosed, which is quite interesting, I think, really very telling if you think about it, right? I often wonder and equate the 14 years of being in a toxic relationship to my health circumstances. But by the time I was diagnosed, I was rebuilding my life, and I was at the peak of my career, so I was in a different place. So this is part 2 of my MS story, and I think that what I'll do is I will share sort of how I moved forward after counseling and some of the things that I did in the next part, because I actually have to get going now. I have something I need to go do. So we will have, I'll share with you part 3. Just to mention, as I did in the last video, that I have very recently created a Facebook group for women called Women Living with MS and Fatigue. And the reason for this group is it's a private group for women that want to connect so they don't feel isolated and discover how to thrive while living with MS. And I know that can sound like, whoa, I have MS, I can't thrive. Not everybody feels that way, but life can be challenging, especially with the new normal that is constantly changing. I know because I experienced that. My fatigue over the years has it dropped a bit, and then as I age, it's gone up. So it's been an interesting experience, but there are ways that we can thrive, and I feel that even within the limitations that I have and the struggles that I have, particularly around fatigue, that I have a meaningful life, that I can thrive. Some days I'm not thriving so much, but with a constant I am. So encourage you, if you're interested in that group, to check out that link below, and if you want to join. Let's become part of the conversation. Become one of these legacy leaders that can share with other people how you are thriving in your life, or how you want to thrive, or how you see other people thriving, and your wish, your longing, or your hope to thrive. My belief is, and this might piss some of you off, is that, you know, I know a lot of people are waiting for the cure, and I'm like, I can't wait for the cure, right? Like, who knows if it will come in my lifetime or not? Maybe it will, maybe it won't. I'm not waiting for it. I'm living my life now in the present, on good days and bad days. I'm living it, and that's you know, that's how I roll. So yeah, feel free to comment about that down below too. I encourage you to do that. So again, I'm Jen DeTracy. This is my MS story, and this is part 2. And sometime in the very near future, I will record part 3. So stay tuned. All right, thank you. Have a great day.